more minutes. So feeling free to get set up, have all your stuff out. As we do start the practice, we will put our mics on mute. After class, you're welcome to stick around and chat for a few minutes if you'd like. And you're also welcome at any time to turn off your camera. You don't have to be on screen. I enjoy being able to see you, but I get that you may not want everyone else to be able to see you. If you would like to make my screen bigger, you can change that option in your view section. And then you can click so that it's just my screen and you're a tiny screen in the bottom. And if you haven't already heard me say it, feel free to go ahead and grab whatever you would like to support you through this practice. I've got blankets and a beach towel. I have yoga blocks, but if you don't have blocks, no big deal. And I also have a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, most people don't really just have those hanging around at their house. Feel free to grab a few pillows. Pillows tend to be a little bit squishier, and so you need more than one to set up some of the postures to create the support and shape that we're working toward. How we doing? Oh, you've got most of your mics off. Like, you can tell me later if you don't have to answer.
What? Me?
Oh, I realized most of the mics are already off, and I asked how you were doing, so.
We've got 3 dogs, and they're all over the place.
That's okay. Napoleon went on inside, but Max is out here.
Hi, Bagheera. Bagheera loves yoga mats. He's a huge fan. All right, everybody. Here.
All right, so it is 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. So you can go ahead and mute if you're not already muted. Looks like most of you are. So welcome to Restorative / Yin. Today's class will be a little bit more on the restorative side than the Yin side, which means we'll be using our props. We'll be doing a lot of long holds, but we'll be supported there. If you've never taken a restorative class or never taken a restorative class from me, think about clocking in at a workload of maybe 4. You're going to want to not be using a lot of strength and movement to get into these postures. Depending on the posture that we're in, we'll stay there anywhere between 2 and 5 minutes, focusing in on the deeper tissues in your connective tissue. Most of the time when we do a lot of stretching, it targets the muscles. And so getting into the posture and letting yourself hold there and rest helps work into the connective tissue, which many of us probably need. Today's class will focus on heart opening because you've probably got a lot of anxiety. You know, everything's in a world of what ifs right now, and some hip stuff. We tend to hold a lot of tension and anxiety in our hips, so you might have noticed that your hips are a little bit tight. If you've taken any of my classes earlier this week, we've also done a goodly amount of hip opening as well. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up, yes, no? Great. My mat is sideways, mostly because it'll help you see where the props go a little bit better. I tend to teach more like a mirror, but in restorative it's a little bit different. Do go ahead and grab either a towel or one of your blankets and kind of roll it up like a thick sushi roll. That way it's kind of ready if you need it for some support in different postures. So it'll be kind of like this. And then wherever you are, just kind of find a comfy seat. Legs can be crossed or not. You can have one leg in, one leg out. Just kind of arriving, pausing, taking notes of how your body feels. Maybe you let your eyes close and you feel length through the spine. So you feel the crown of the head reaching high, your tailbone reaching down. This allows your shoulders to stack over your hips. Hands can be facing up to kind of invite some openness, or your hands can rest down. That makes you feel a little bit more grounded, a little bit more solid in your practice. Just let your breath kind of flow normally. In different postures, we'll focus the breath differently. Sometimes really focusing on the inhale. Other times, checking in with that exhale. So not worrying about how long each breath cycle is. So just noticing that you are in fact breathing. Maybe you deepen it a little bit. Most of us don't take full deep breaths throughout our day. And then as you pause for a couple more rounds of breath, feel free to set an intention to guide your practice, perhaps one of restoration, relaxation, or rest. And embracing the opportunity to sit in your stillness. Often in your restorative practice, that is the hardest part, where you're just sitting there with yourself. Don't get frustrated if your mind starts to wander. Just bring it back with your intention, or maybe just focus in on your breathing pattern. So to get started for our first posture, lots of options with the props that you have. So it may look a little bit different, but you're going to definitely take at least one pillow, probably two. If you happen to have blocks, you'll set them up at the top of your mat. And then you're going to have sort of this incline, thinking sort of a lounger, recliner happening here. So if that means using multiple pillows or adding in your blanket, whatever works there. And we're going to keep our props here for the next 3 postures. So if you're using downy pillows, you might realize you got to add things as we move through, because you know they get real squished. And so once you've set up some props to look similar to this, what I'm looking for is the incline that is closest to you. It doesn't really matter what's happening back here. You're going to have your hips right up against the bottom of it. And then you're going to just lay on back. Arms can be out kind of gently, hands facing up. Lots of options with your legs here. Really pay attention to how your low back feels to decide where you place your legs. They can stay stretched out long. You can plant your feet and bend your knees up to the ceiling. You could also bring the bottoms of your feet together. Be real careful with this one and your low back. Making sure it's somewhere you can relax and feel the weight of your shoulders dropping onto your props. And your heart is opening up toward the ceiling. As you pause here, inhales create space on the front side of the body. Exhales, droop the shoulders over the bolster, pillows, props behind you. Working against our technology hunker here. Many of us are working from home. Maybe that's how you do life regularly. Maybe it's a new addition. And so you've probably spent more time in front of screens. Just letting yourself pause, feel your body weight give in to the props and the floor or the mat or whatever is underneath you. You may not notice anything right away. Sometimes it takes a minute or two for the posture to start to settle into the body. You slowly find depth. Really pay attention to the exhale here as it lets the limbs become heavy onto the props. Maybe you begin to deepen your inhale. And even sigh out your exhale. You can make noise, nobody can hear you. As we pause here for about 5 more rounds of breath, maybe you gently roll the base of the skull from side to side across your crop. It might give a slight massaging sensation, could potentially release tension behind the eyes. And if you're like me and sitting still is hard, it gives you an opportunity to mindfully move. Beginning to bring that nod to stillness if you chose to take it. And then if you chose to let your knees open wide with your bottoms of your feet together, maybe guide the knees up toward one another. Feel free to use your hand. And everybody will kind of meet with the legs out long on the mat. Then we're going to gently begin to transition to our next option. So we're going to keep the props as they are. You're going to kind of turn one hip up against them. Think line your quad up with it, your hip bone at the back of your set of props, and maybe the middle of your quad, depending on the size of your pillow, is on the other edge of it. There are several stages here. Maybe your knees stack, maybe they kind of spread. Feel free to prop anything to support underneath the knee. And so we'll all start by framing that pillow, one hand on each side. So you're twisting your chest toward the props. As you lay your torso down, you can start with your nose facing the same way as your knees. This may be deep enough for you, feeling that shoulder dropping toward the pillow or bolster. Here, you've got a little bit of a twist going on through the torso. Your inhales lengthen the spine. And the exhale might drop that shoulder a little bit closer to the bolster. Check in with that back hand. Make sure you're not pushing into the floor or surface with it. Just let it relax. If you're like, I'd like to go a smidge deeper, you can turn your chin straight to the bolster. Maybe you rest the forehead, depending on the prop. The last option you might explore would be to turn the head the opposite direction, completing your twist. You may decide that's too deep, and you just dial it back. Remember, you're clocking in at workload of 4 or less. Breath should be easy. Body is supported. And as you continue to pause, you might decide you want to try those slightly deeper options. as your body has started to settle in. We've got about 1 more minute here. Maybe you close your eyes. Your eyes can be closed this whole practice. If you've got your head looking the opposite way, begin to gently return it, facing the same way as your knees. And you can begin to guide yourself up, letting yourself shift. Doesn't matter really where the legs are. And reach your arms high. And exhale them down to heart center. As we transition to the other side. You may find you need an extra prop on one side versus the other. As you turn the opposite hip up against your prop. Maybe knees stack, maybe they don't. As you're ready, hands frame your pillow. You lay the torso toward it. Nose starts the same direction as the knee. Again, length through the inhale. Depth of width in your exhale. When you're ready to bring the chin center. And eventually looking the opposite direction. Got a little bit less than a minute to continue noticing sensation from the posture. You've got your opposite cheek. Gently return the nose to the same direction as the knees. You can gently press through your hands, guide yourself up. Return both hips against the bolster or pillow, and just briefly return to that heart opener, checking in with how the torso feels now that you've found a twist on each side. Just pausing here for about 3 breaths. And when you've completed those rounds, no rush, you can guide yourself up. Just gently drop your chin to the chest. Feel some space in the back of the neck. And we'll begin to set up for our next posture. So you can dismantle whatever you built. We're going to set up here, kind of moving down the spine. This is one of my very favorite restorative postures. I call it the butt up pose. I'm real sure that there's probably a fancier name. But imagine a kid fell asleep over the arm of a sofa. Yeah, that's the image we're going for here. So you might take 1 pillow, 2 pillows, some blankets. You're going to place it, if you're using a mat, that pillow will be right about the center of the mat. You might also choose to grab a blanket here. Sometimes you need a little bit of a path down, or your torso is really long, unlike mine, and you've come off your mat. And when you're ready, you kind of gauge where your hips are, thinking right at the hip crease, and that lays onto the bolster or pile of pillows. And then you kind of drift down. So you're like this little hill happening here. Maybe you need to place your hand under your face. Maybe you'd like to turn one cheek. Halfway through here, I'll cue you to turn the opposite cheek. You're also welcome to have forehead down, or if you don't need the blanket, feel free to surrender onto the mat here. This is a nice, gentle psoas stretch. Many ways we access a tight psoas is they're far less gentle. This one is eventually going to help you feel space in your low back. As you breathe here, you're actually letting that exhale kind of sneak out like a ninja. Your psoas is a fight or flight muscle, and it activates on the exhale. You're just having some nice gentle breathing here. You might begin to feel some sensation there in the low back. If you've got your cheek turned one way, go ahead and turn it the opposite direction. We are creatures of habit. We tend to turn the same cheek first. often not until about minute 3 that you start to notice the sensation in your low back. And as you're ready, you can kind of bring your chin toward the middle and slowly begin. Press yourself to child's pose. Child's pose is not particularly accessible or comfortable for you. You can keep your hips high in puppy pose. Eventually though, maybe see how it feels to let your elbows, maybe even your forehead, rest on your stack of pillows or bolster. In this nice modified child's pose that helps invite the hips down toward the heels. You could also angle your bolster up and lean your pile of pillows onto it, letting your upper body be a little bit higher. And you can make your way up to a seat. I don't really love to sit on my knees for very long, so don't worry, we're not staying there. Then as we start setting into a couple seated stretches that are gonna target our hips and maybe even into our hamstrings a smidge, feel free to, if you're on the floor, to sit on one of your blankets. We're gonna let one leg, doesn't matter, there's 2, extend out slightly forward. It could angle out a little. And then you're gonna bend the opposite leg. Maybe it pulls in close to your hip, maybe it's closer to the knee, maybe it doesn't even touch. If that's putting pressure on the joint, maybe you pop a blanket underneath that knee just to give it a little bit of cushion and support so that you're not doing anything wonky to that joint. You can also move booty meat out of the way so you're actually sitting on your sits bones instead of rocking backward on your pelvis. Then you can grab your stack of pillows or one of the pillows depending. And this is height of this prop is up to you. Now, remember that we are not necessarily going to our depth of stretch. You can if you'd like, but that's not really the goal here. So maybe you keep it up on its side or even at an angle, and you just start to bring your torso forward. Ideally, that extended leg, the big toe is flexed up to the ceiling, which just protects the knee a little bit, but you can relax your ankle as well. And then you just rest forward, getting a little bit of a hip stretch on that bent leg, on that external rotator, and targeting the hamstring. I even feel it in my IT band today of that extended leg. Really feeling the sits bones continuing to press down, and that might even give you a little bit of space in your low back. If you're like, I don't feel anything at all, you can lower your pillows and make them closer to the ground. Or even do this posture without the pillow. Here, you've got length through the spine on the inhale, And the exhale drops you farther onto your bolster or pillow. And you can gently walk yourself up. Maybe press your hands on the floor behind you and just open the chest to the ceiling slightly as we begin to transition to your second side. Feeling free to support the leg as you stretch it out, maybe jiggle it out a little bit, especially if it doesn't like to be bent like that. And set up for your second side. You may find that one side, you can pull your heel in closer or not, doesn't matter. Finding that general shape where you're having one leg extended and one leg bent. If we were standing on the mat, this would look very much like tree pose. And then you find your bolster. Maybe you start high. If you have a bolster, try not to put the zipper on your face. And you can sort of gently deepen into the stretch. If your legs have a tendency to open out, knees and big toe flop out to the side, do try to pull that knee a little bit in. Just helps maintain alignment from the hip to the ankle. Again, inhales lengthen, exhales might deepen your fold. You can even provide a little bit of external support with the same arm as extended leg and just let it push it in lightly. It's not going to really move anywhere, but it might help you resist the urge to drop the knee out. And as you're ready, you can walk yourself up, taking your time to get upright. Hands can go behind, opening up to the chest. Then returning to a neutral spine. Moving the bolster out of your way, extending the leg down, maybe jiggling out that quad. And kind of actually move those quads around the bone. We often think we have relaxed our legs, so just like grabbing on top and jiggling from side to side. It's akin to the sensation of Thai massage. So it probably jiggles all the way down through the feet. But we often just think we've relaxed our legs, but we have not. Setting up for a reclined posture here. So maybe you create extra cushion with a blanket underneath you. Do be sure the bolster or pillow is pretty reachable as you lay your whole torso down to the mat. As you arrive there though, just let your feet plant on the floor or whatever surface you're practicing on. And feel the spine relaxing onto that surface. Shoulders pressing down. Maybe your whole spine touches, maybe not. We all have natural curve to the spine, so there's no need to tuck the pelvis and tilt it to try to get rid of your curvature. And from here, you can keep one foot planted on the floor, or you could stretch that leg long, totally up to you. Whichever knee you kept bent, if you're doing that, take your bolster or pillow to the opposite side. Then maybe you catch on the back of the thigh, maybe you can reach the knee. And just hug that quad toward the chest. You could gently, regardless of where you're hugging, sway the leg from side to side, getting a nice massage across those internal organs. Depending on which leg you're doing, the ascending or descending colon. And then this might take a little bit of scooching of your bolster. You take that knee across, and the knee is going to rest on that prop. If you like this particular spinal twist without a prop, feel free to move that pillow. And then your arms reach out as if you're trying to make a big T. Palms can press face up. And as we inhale here, we create length through the spine. The exhale finds depth of twist. And maybe that back shoulder finds the floor or mat. Gaze is up to you here. Maybe you look over toward where the knee is bending. Option to extend the leg. You could even maybe reach for a toe if that's something you really like. Personally, that one really gets into my IT band and outer hip. If you're taking that option, you can take your other thumb into your hip crease and roll it down, just pressing it down toward the bottom of your mat. If you're like, no, thank you, feel free to stay bent. Maybe the gaze looks over the opposite shoulder. Here you're getting some stretch and openness across the shoulders, twisting through the spine with support so it doesn't settle into your low back. And also maybe getting into that external rotator of the leg that's across the body. If you've taken any modifications, go ahead and let that knee bend once more. And begin to let yourself roll back, spine to the mat. Taking the hands, maybe getting a basket weave behind the thigh. And just let that leg stretch and bend. Maybe it moves with your breath. Inhales would straighten the leg. exhales would bend the leg. You're also welcome to keep the leg straight, feeling it stacking over the hip. No need to pull the toe to your nose. Feeling the hands grabbing on the hamstring and pulling it towards you while the hamstring pushes into the hand. If that reach isn't accessible, maybe you grab a blanket or that wound up towel and make your grip a little bit longer, as if you had a yoga strap. And releasing your grip, maybe you bend at the knee and let the heel find the floor. Pausing briefly, noticing the difference from one side to the other. Then you can plant your feet once more. Grab your stack of pillows or bolster and drop it onto the other side. If you'd like to straighten one leg, feel free. We're switching sides. Then you lift your other leg. You could also use that towel or blanket around here. You can grab the back of the thigh or around the shin. And maybe you gently sway that side to side, doing that massage on the second side of the body. And then as that tick-tock feels even, you can take that knee across the body to the bolster or pillows and begin to reach the arms out and choose where you would like to stay. Maybe the head looks straight up. Maybe it looks in the same direction as your bent knee. Maybe you grab for toe. If you take that option, opposite thumb goes into the hip crease and presses down. Only if you wanted to intensify that though, no pressure. Maybe the gaze looks over the opposite fingers. Maybe it's exactly the same as your first side. Maybe it feels different. Inhale, find length in the spine. Exhale, deepens your twist. Then, if you've taken modifications, bend the knee once more. Then you can guide it back over top of your hip as you roll 2 shoulders to the mat. And taking that basket grip behind the thigh or wrapping that towel or blanket so that you have made your arms longer. And play with that stretch and bend. Or maybe it stays straight, pulling the thigh towards you as the thigh presses away. And as you're ready, you can release your grip. Extend the leg out. Maybe rock the hips from side to side. Maybe plant the feet and windshield wiper the knees. And setting up for one more posture before we settle into Shavasana. Depending on the props you have, you're going to choose maybe a stack of blankets. If you happen to have a yoga block, that's what I would use. Or probably not your whole pillow stack, maybe just one, depending. We're gonna press our hips up slightly and shimmy the prop underneath our sacrum for a supported bridge pose. We're not shooting for very high, so like probably not that more than that much space between your hips and the mat. This allows you to relax your quads and let your hips rest on the prop. Hands are up to you here. They could reach out to the side. If you've never done bridge pose with your hands over your head, maybe give that a shot. It's just a slight variation. As we pause here, in a few breaths, I'll start offering some options. You might choose to keep your feet planted the whole time. You might take very deep inhales here, filling up even through the belly. And the exhale melts the hips onto the bolster or pillow. For your first option here, maybe you just stretch one leg out. You might start to feel a little bit of sensation through the hip flexor, maybe even into the psoas or the quad. Check in with your low back and make sure there's no tension there. You can pause here with one leg for 3 to 5 rounds of breath. And then we'll switch sides. Switching whenever it feels good for your body. Sometimes this gets into that internal rotator of our hip. An option to alternate legs again, spending about 3 breaths on each side, or maybe test the waters of extending both legs at once. Depending on the height of your prop, this might put too much pressure on your low back. If you start to feel any tension there, return to bending both knees or alternating the straight leg. Wherever you are, we're going to stay here for about 6 rounds of breath. So if you're alternating legs, you'll switch legs halfway through. Here that breath is continuing to deepen into the belly, creating a stretch on the front side of the body. Remembering at any time, you can plant your feet back on the mat. Once you've hit those rounds, everybody will bend their knees, feet planting. Maybe you stay here. Or the last option, your legs just reach up to the ceiling. Here, I've heard this posture called many things. Some people call it supported shoulder stand. Others call it tiger or waterfall. Your legs are kind of floating over your hips. It's a very gentle, soothing inversion. You could gently flex and point the toes. If you need some mindful movement, finding the movement through your toes and ankles. Encourage blood flow and help support the lymphatic system. When you're ready, knees can bend, feet can plant. You have to press into the feet slightly so that you can shimmy that prop out from underneath you and gently articulate the spine back to the mat. Pausing briefly. Then we'll set up for Shavasana. Feeling free to just lay flat, arms and legs can splay. I'm gonna offer the option of rolling hills, which means you gotta do a little bit of folding and rolling of some sort of blanket. So if you're taking rolling hills, you might unroll the blanket you rolled earlier, depending on length of torso here. So you're gonna have a fold at the bottom. This is thinking quesadilla, folded like a quesadilla. That's gonna go right underneath your sacrum. Then the top rolls a little bit tighter, like a sushi roll. That's gonna support underneath your neck. If this feels uncomfortable, it is the thickness of your quesadilla underneath your hips. So then once you've folded it and rolled it, you'll lay down, grab your bolster or pillow on your way. That's gonna go, this one is usually easier when I can come around and help you place this bolster, but the bolster is gonna go under your knees. It might be high side, or your pillows, it might be high, it might be low, giving you this sort of rolling hill action onto your mat. Then you just sort of lay your torso down. Maybe you adjust right, and you got the length of your torso right, and you've got a little bit of support under your neck, under your hips, and under your knees. Maybe your heels touch, maybe not. And you just simply find the place where you can surrender. If this does not work for your body, feel free to choose any other option for your Shavasana. Maybe you just use the bolster under your knees or pillow. Maybe you don't use any props at all. And you simply Let tension go, finding release and rest in your Shavasana. Your mind begins to wander. Just focus on the natural rhythm of your breath. Embracing the stillness, the restoration in the body. Giving yourself permission to enjoy stillness. Finding the balance of rest for both the body and the mind. Ignoring to-do lists. Just simply being and taking up space. Then taking a conscious inhale, filling all the way up through the lungs, maybe a belly breath. Exhale, sigh it out. All the air escapes. Taking a nice deep inhale once more. Exhale, sigh it out. Then you can begin to find minor movements, maybe wiggling fingers and toes, perhaps running the thumb over each finger. Maybe you circle at the ankles and wrists. Perhaps gently nodding the head from side to side. Inviting slow, mindful movements back into the body. When you're ready, You can shove the bolster or pillows out of your way and gently roll to your favorite side. Maybe the bottom arm is a pillow. Pausing as your practice settles into your body. And then gently guiding yourself up to a comfortable seat, whatever that looks like for you. Pausing, feeling the spine stacking. Eyes can be closed or downcast. Inhale, arms reach high, palms meeting at the top. Exhale, hands pause at your third eye as you seek openness of mind. They rest at your lips so that you find honest words may settle at your heart as you arrive at a happy heart. Thank you for